All right, CA Foundation students, welcome. If you're gearing up for your exams, you know the Negotiable Instruments Act is a big one. It might feel a little old school, but trust me, it's loaded with marks. So in this explainer, we're going to cut through the noise and break down exactly what you need to nail this for your exam.
Okay, let's just get this out of the way first. I know what you're thinking. We've got UPI, we've got instant transfers. Why on earth are we digging into a law from 1881? And for that matter, before all this, why didn't people just stick to cash?
Well, the answer is pretty simple. It was all about making business work better. Just picture trying to do a massive business deal by lugging around giant chests full of cash. It was slow, incredibly risky, and just a huge pain. This act created a way to use paper that was just as good as money, but way safer and easier to handle.
So, here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with the absolute basics. Then, we'll meet the three big players in this act. We'll follow their journey, tackle the super important topic of what happens when a check bounces, and then wrap it all up with a quick recap that's built for your revision.
All right, let's dive in. First things first, we need to build our foundation. What in the world is a negotiable instrument anyway? If you get this definition, the rest of the act starts to make a whole lot more sense.
So at its heart, it's just a signed piece of paper that promises or orders someone to pay money. But here's the magic trick. Freely transferable means you can pass it along like a $20 bill. And perfect title? That's the real game changer. It means if you get that instrument in good faith, it's yours, clean and clear. Even if the person who gave it to you had some issue with it, it's like a legal clean slate.
Okay, for your exams, especially those multiple choice questions, this slide is pure gold. These are the rules. It's got to be written down and signed. The promise or order has to be unconditional. No, I'll pay you if it rains. It has to be for a set amount of money, not, say, 5 bags of rice. And remember, just writing it out isn't enough. You actually have to deliver it to someone for it to be valid. All right, now let's get to the stars of the show. There are 3 main types of negotiable instruments that you absolutely positively have to know. The Act itself points to these 3 as the big ones.
First up, we've got the promissory note, covered in Section 4. The key word to burn into your brain here is promise. It's a simple two-party deal. You have the maker, the one making the promise to pay, and the payee, the one who gets paid. That's it. It's basically a formal IOU.
Next, in Section 5, we have the bill of exchange. Now, the key word here shifts from promise to order. This isn't an IOU, it's a you pay them. It involves 3 people. The drawer writes the bill, ordering the drawee to pay money to the payee.
Now this table right here, this is a classic exam question, so pay attention. A promissory note is a promise with just 2 parties. A bill of exchange is an order with 3. And here's a huge difference. A bill has to be accepted by the drawee before they're on the hook to pay. A note is binding right from the start. Knowing these differences is crucial.
And pillar number 3 from Section 6 is the good old check. A check is basically just a very specific type of bill of exchange. It has 2 special rules. 1, the drawee, the one ordered to pay, is always a bank. And 2, it's always payable on demand, which just means whenever you present it. So remember, all checks are bills of exchange, but not all bills of exchange are checks. Okay, so we have these instruments, but what makes them negotiable? It's the way they move from one person to another. Let's look at how that actually happens.
It really comes down to one simple question. Who is it payable to? A bearer instrument is like cash. Whoever is holding it can claim the money. You transfer it just by handing it over. Super simple. An order instrument, on the other hand, is made out to a specific person. To pass it on, that person has to endorse it, which is just a fancy word for signing the back of it, and then hand it over.
So, let's walk through the life of a typical bill. It starts when the seller creates it and sends it to the buyer. The most important step is number 2, acceptance. When the buyer accepts it, they are now legally obligated to pay. Then, when the due date rolls around, the holder presents it, gets paid, and the instrument's job is done. All right, let's shift gears to a topic that is hugely important, not just for your exams, but in the real world. What happens when a check gets dishonored? Or, as everyone calls it, when a check bounces. This is governed by probably the most famous section of the whole act.
Remember this number, Section 138. Say it with me, Section 138. This is the section that gives the act its real power. It's what turns a bounced check from a simple money problem into a criminal offense.
Now, you have to be super careful here.
For this to become a criminal offense, a very specific checklist of conditions has to be met one after another. The check has to be for a real debt, not a gift. It has to bounce specifically for insufficient funds. It must have been presented within 3 months. And then a strict legal timeline kicks into gear.
And this is that critical timeline. The second you find out the check bounced, a 30-day clock starts ticking for you to send a legal notice. Once the drawer gets that notice, a 15-day clock starts for them to make the payment. And only if they still don't pay within those 15 days can you go ahead and file a complaint. Miss these deadlines and you might lose your right to sue.
And the consequences are serious. We're talking about possible jail time of up to 2 years or a fine that could be double the amount of the check, or even both. This is why a check is supposed to be taken as seriously as cash.
Phew, we've covered a ton. So let's bring it all home and consolidate everything into one powerful recap. This is the slide you're going to want to screenshot for that last-minute revision before you walk into the exam hall.
Look at this. This is the whole thing in a nutshell. Promissory note, the keyword is promise. Bill of exchange, it's an order. A check, it's an order on a banker. And for dishonor, Section 138, just remember that 30 plus 15-day timeline. If you can remember just this table, you're in a really good spot.
So, to wrap up, here's a thought. Yeah, this law was built for paper in a world without computers, but the core ideas of trust, of a clear promise to pay, of transferability, and of liability, those ideas are timeless. They're the invisible legal software that's running in the background of every single UPI transaction you make today. Good luck with your exams.